Yo, what's up, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? You know it's your boy back again on this beautiful Wednesday night with Titletown TV presents X's and O Sports Game Day preview. Oh yeah, and also whatever you get your podcast needs from Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, whatever. We are sponsored by Anchor app, where you can start your own free podcast and be aired all over the place. Like I mentioned before, this is game day preview. Before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment as well to this video and many videos from Sports Talk and KC, LOL Comedy Hour, Titletown Wrestling, and Titletown TV in general, um, on YouTube, Facebook, as well. Tonight is all about football. Again, till some more basketball pop up, NCAA and NBA. First, we're gonna start off with the new NCAA AP poll, top 25. Um, got a little shakeup at the top. Georgia finally jumped over Bama at one. Um, I'm guessing because of how Bama um, played against Texas last week, only winning by 1 point. Um, Georgia didn't have much of a game last week against Stanford, winning 33-0. Um, Stetson Bennett was 24 for 30, 34, 300 yards and a touchdown. Pretty simple game. Just one of those games to continue to get in rhythm. Probably, install some new plays, what I'm saying, work on little kinks and stuff like that. Um, to prepare for next week against, this week now, against South Carolina, SEC, a rivalry game. Um, Georgia is coming in 2-0, of course, undefeated national champions. Of course, at number two, like I just mentioned, Alabama coming in 2-0 against Louisiana Monroe after struggling last week against Texas. Only winning 20-19 last week against Texas. A lot of people, including myself, was uh, hanging on for dear life and on the edge of our seats, and heart dropped a couple times, felt it in my stomach. Like, dang, man, could we really lose to an unranked Texas team, a team that we demolished, of course, years and years ago, and that's the championship game in the Rose Bowl about 12 years ago, I think, 12, 13 years ago. Back when Texas the power was a true, really true powerhouse. Colt McCoy at quarterback. Um, Bama, that was pretty much the start of the dynasty for Bama. Next at number three, we have Ohio State coming in 2-0 as well. Going against Toledo next this weekend. Um, Ohio State pretty consistent on three teams. Will probably be there until, like I mentioned on last week's show, until they play Michigan. Hopefully, we'll be still at number four going into that game, and depending on how things shake up, they could definitely jump Bama. Like I mentioned before, after this struggle win against Texas. Um, Number four, Michigan coming in 2-0 against UConn this weekend. Like I mentioned before, same for Ohio State. Just consistently number four team will continue to will eventually climb that ladder once they do play their rival Ohio State later in the season, who hopefully will be number three, and maybe they can jump Bama. Um, didn't have, yeah, had a easy game last week as well against Hawaii, winning 56 to 10. I think they're still using that yeah, still using that multiple quarterback system. McCarthy was 11 for 12, had three touchdowns, 229 yards passing. Great game for them. One of those bounce back games to continue to add to the offense and say iron out some wrinkles, whatever like that. Just another one of those prep games. Clemson, team who's kind of struggling to hang on to the number five spot as of late. It didn't look like the top five team we thought they would be this year. But they are 2-0. We'll play Louisiana Tech. Hopefully, it's not a spoiler game. But Louisiana Tech normally plays ranked opponents pretty well, pretty close. Clemson is coming off of a 35-12 victory over Furman. A game that probably shouldn't even should have been this close. It's not really close. Of course, it was a 23-point victory, but these games where you should easily goose egg them, not allow any points, and at least put up 40, 50 points. Like I mentioned before, kind of struggling to hang on to a spot. DJ Aguilera is not really looking like that Heisman Trophy candidate that we all thought he would be. His freshman season backing up Trevor Lawrence, and last season was a down year for him as well. Um, Appreciate that like whoever liked that so far. Um, Shout out to Jordan Jerry Williams for the like. Back to the top 10, top 25. We have number 6 Oklahoma coming in 2-0. Played Nebraska this weekend. A old Big 12 rivalry. I still see glimpses of Nagamagan Sue sacking Sam Bradford in that Big 12 championship game um, years and years ago. This is gonna be having a nostalgic feel. Hopefully, Oklahoma doesn't get too caught up in all that and take care of business. A lot of people are very down on them right now because of obviously what they lost in Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, their coach last season. But they're still undefeated. They're still one of the still the top 10 team. We'll see how things play out for them the rest of the season. They have a winnable conference. Number 7, we have USC coming in 2-0 against in-state rival Fresno State. Should win this game pretty handily. Um, Fresno State hasn't made any noise in quite a while. USC is looking to climb that ladder, maybe jump into that top 5 spot if Clemson struggles or Oklahoma struggles this weekend. USC, we all know what they did this offseason with those acquisitions of Lincoln Riley as coach, Caleb Williams at quarterback, Jordan Addison at receiver, Travis Dye at running back, just playmakers all over the field. Jordan Addison is looking like a first round pick and maybe the best receiver in the nation. We'll see what happens with Jackson Enigma. How do you say his name? Jackson Enigma Smith. Um, this season, he did lead the game last week, but I'm sure will definitely be back for his spot as the top receiver in the nation. But Jordan Addison looking like that guy right now. We know what's going on in LSU and down the Bayou with Kayshawn Booty, not giving him the ball, just not using his skill set, still struggling. So I can see his frustrations. Not sure whether he's leading the team or not, or transferring, or however it works. But them keep a lot on that situation. It's very deep wide receiver class. This is last year. So moving on to Oklahoma State, coming in 2-0 against Arkansas Pine Bluff this weekend. One of those sleeper teams in the Big 12. Um, who will eventually play Oklahoma in the interstate rivalry, probably for that top spot in the Big 12, along with Texas and various teams. Maybe Baylor climbed that as well. Texas could recover from that Bama loss. So that Big 12 is a bit of a toss up for me. Um, Kentucky, another one of SEC East sleeper teams who could make some noise. I know Georgia is probably the top team over there, but coming off a win against another SEC East um, opponent in Florida. Kentucky we're definitely going to surprise some people. Will Levis is continuing to look like that top 10 um, top 10 pick at quarterback. Um, Last week against Florida, he was 13 for 34, 24, 200 yards, one pick, one interception. I mean, one pick, one touchdown. Was sacked 3 times, so we could nitpick his game right now just off of those stats alone. But I do truly believe that with the plays he did actually make, um, could catapult him to the first round. Arkansas come in at number 10, 2-0. Will play Missouri State next week. Kaden Jefferson, man, look out for him. If his team continues to climb that top 10 of the AP poll, could find himself in the Heisman race, man. Has Arkansas playing really well right now. Michigan State, number 11, another Big Ten school, 2-0. Will play Washington this weekend. Um, we thought that Michigan State would struggle a little bit. It did lose Kenneth Walker at running back, well as some other pieces on defense, but they're playing very, very well. Melton got them playing very, very well. Um, Washington is a very winnable game. Um, we'll see how the rest of the season play out. They do still have to play Michigan and I believe Ohio State at some point this season. So we'll see how uh, they finish the season. BYU come in number 12. Will play number 25 Pac-12 rival. Uh, Pac-12 rival Oregon this weekend. Um, I think this game could go either way. I think Oregon will finally start to live up to those high expectations going into the season. Maybe Bo Nix finally make a turn for the season. BYU, very underrated team that I like a lot of people didn't really read up on and look up on this season. I have them winning in a very close game. BYU. Next team on number 13, we have Miami 2-0. Will play Texas A&M in a game that could have some playoff implications on the season later on the season. Of course, Texas A&M plays Bama, and the rest of the SEC West Gauntlet could possibly sneak up into the SEC championship game with a win over Bama in an undefeated season. Miami is looking at Clemson like they could win their conference as well, man. Especially with Clemson struggling and not living up to expectations like they have this season. Utah, 1-1, obviously lost to Florida early in the season. Looking to bounce back last week. Bounce back last week, and we'll play San Diego State this week. And all right. Number 15, we have the Tennessee Volunteers coming in at 2-0. We'll play Arkansas, not Arkansas. We'll play Akron this weekend. Um, Tennessee was one of my sleeper pick uh, to finish second. I do like Kentucky team, but I think Tennessee is the better team. We'll see how that matchup plays out later on in the season. But I think Tennessee really has something going there, man. Heldon Tucker is looking like a true star number, another Tennessee great quarterback. I'm not saying he's Peyton or even T. Martin, but Tennessee doesn't have a rich history of a bunch of great quarterbacks, and I think if out of all of them, he's one of the great ones. Um, North Carolina State is 2-0. They played Texas Tech this weekend. Haven't watched too much of North Carolina State this season, or even read up on the off season. Surprised to see them at 16. Maybe they are looking at the ACC like it possibly can win the division as well, the conference as well. Like I mentioned before, Clemson is kind of just leaving things open right now, man. Kind of like the Cowboys of the NCAA right now. At a very, very, very winnable conference, and they are struggling and allowing the other teams to hang around. Baylor, team we talked about a little bit before, could win the Big 12. 1-1 will play Texas State. Should be a very winnable game. Florida coming in at 18. 1-1 is playing South Florida. Another winnable game for them. Wake Forest 2-0 play Liberty without Malik Willis. He's now in the NFL. Wake Forest will win the game. Another ACC school who could sneak in, into that college football playoff just based off what's going on in the ACC. Is kind of wide open. You have several teams ranked right now, still undefeated. We got a long season ahead of us. Texas 1-1, 21 after nearly beating #1 Alabama. So they jumped a lot of great teams. Penn State underneath them at 2-0, but at 22, we'll play Auburn. Should be a very close game. I got Penn State winning that game. Pittsburgh versus Western Michigan. Pittsburgh number 23. They're 1-1 currently. Um, After losing to West Virginia this season, should be a clean up game. Clean up their mistakes that they suffered last week against West Virginia. Texas A&M will play Miami, like we mentioned before. I have Miami winning that game. Oregon is playing BYU. The top 25, new top 25 for the college football season. Let's get into some game predictions. Before I get started on that, please comment who you think got snubbed in the top 25, who was too high, who was too low, questions like that. All right, let's get into the game predictions for tonight. First, we're gonna start with the local games. Bama versus Louisiana Monroe. I have Bama winning it very, very handily. Um, should be a high scoring game for Bama. Hopefully, we can replicate the things we did against Utah State to start the season off. We had number 22 Penn State going against Auburn. Game I just talked about a couple seconds ago. Penn State is going to win the game. In my opinion, UAB is hosting Georgia Southern. I have UAB with a home field advantage winning this game. Um, South Alabama travels all the way to LA to take on the University of California in LA Bruins. UCLA Bruins, yes. This weekend, they both coming in 2-0. South Alabama is looking very, very, very good. But I think UCLA has too much firepower for South Alabama to hold them. They have a great young quarterback under him right now, at the helm right now. So looking to see how he plays against a team like South Alabama. Next, we have Troy going against the upsetters, the spoilers, whatever you want to call them, Appalachian State, who also won, but that one victory is over Texas A&M. Punk X Texas A&M, man. How can you possibly lose to Appalachian State, bro? Appalachian State, come on now, man. But I think Troy gonna suffer the same fate. Appalachian State should be riding that high from beating Texas A&M. Uh, UCLA, speaking of which, is this a second Bama school they're playing 2 weeks in a row. They played Alabama State last week. Torian Thompson Robinson is the quarterback I was talking about earlier. He was 9 for 7, 101 yards, and one touchdown, and a 45-7 victory over Alabama State. Next game we got to be predict is Georgia versus South Carolina. I have Georgia win this game pretty handily in the SEC rivalry game. Um, Georgia is just the best team in the nation right now. Um, I'm a Bama fan, and I will, shoot, they're looking right now. They're looking better than us right now currently. So they seem like it'd be a more complete team. That offense is starting to catch up with their defense. The defense is still top notch, despite losing all the players they lost last year to the NFL. But yeah, I have Georgia beating South Carolina pretty handily. Oklahoma versus Nebraska and a former Big 12 rivalry. Oklahoma, BYU over Oregon. Miami versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M with the upset victory. Um, Hopefully bounce back from that Appalachian State loss. And then just two minor games that are in the top five. Ohio State versus Toledo. I have Ohio State winning the game, and UConn uh, versus Michigan. Michigan winning the game pretty handily. Let's come to the fun part of this show. We have some fantasy football talk. Last weekend I was 12 1, 2-1 in my three fantasy league, and the first in my first league, the Backcrackers League, that feature DJ Johnson and all the host of people that we know. My Titletown Black Warriors scored 108 points, 16 points, versus the Birmingham Dirty Boys, uh, losing 129 to 29 to 108.16. My top performers from the weekend from that matchup is Cooper Cup, who had 31.8 points um, from 13 receptions, 128 yards, one touchdown, 9.8 average, nearly a first down every time he caught the ball. He caught the ball 13 times. That's 13, nearly 13 first downs and a touchdown for Cooper Cup. Justin Herbert finished with 279 yards, three touchdowns, was 76%, uh, 76% completion rate, 200, blah, 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 26 for 34, uh, 23 points, 26 fantasy points. Um, Debo Samuel had 12.6 fantasy points, um, 8 rushes for 52 yards, 6.5 per carry, one touchdown, only two catches for 14 yards. But those are my top performers from that matchup. Um, Guys on my team who didn't do so well, who could possibly be to blame for this loss. Elijah Mitchell, of course, left the game hurt. Had 4.1 fantasy points, 6 rushes, 41 yards, 6.8 average. CD Lamb, a guy who I expected for some big things from this season, with them trading away Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, with another year under his belt as the starting quarterback for the Cowboys, the franchise quarterback for the Cowboys. I probably could have replaced CD Lamb, who only had 4.9 fantasy points, two receptions for 29 yards. With a guy like Brandon Cooks, who was on my bench, who had 15.2 points, I knew Brandon Cooks was gonna do great. He's literally the whole offense for the Houston Texans. Um, had 7 receptions for 82 yards, 11.7 yards per catch. Um, CJ Hawkinson, another guy I had in my starting lineup for this game, it only had 7.8 points, which is not a huge letdown from the tight end position, but I had another guy on my bench who did play even better than he did. Pat Firemouth from the Pittsburgh Steelers had 12.5 fantasy points, 5 receptions, 75 yards, 15 point 0 yards average. In my next fantasy matchup, fantasy game, I had in my Titletown League of Champions, the league I created along with my brother Lamar Pullum, which I played this weekend. His Tuscaloosa Westside Bulls only scored 87.68 points. My Titletown Black Warriors scored 108.62 points. That's 108. That's a target mark for mine this weekend, I guess. My number one pick and my number one performance this weekend was Jonathan Taylor, who scored 27.5 points, had 31 rushes for 161 yards, 5.2 per pop, one touchdown. Mike Evans, my top receiver for this weekend, had 18.1 fantasy points, with five receptions for 71 yards, one touchdown, 14.2 yards per catch. Nick Chubb, another running back of mine, 5.2, 15.2 fantasy points, 22 rushes for 141 yards. He did have one catch, 2 yards, which doesn't matter very much. Um, One more top performer of mine was the Ravens defense and special teams, who had 9 points in a 24-9 victory over the Jets. One interception, one fumble recovery, three sacks. I know they probably could have done a little better um, against a shorthanded Jets team who was featuring um, Joe Flacco at quarterback with Zach Wilson being hurt. Um, but I knew the reason why I'm just talking about the Ravens right now. I knew this would be a great play for me this weekend. Very, very great choice. Great choice for me. Um, so I'm just happy that that pick went through for me. Um, of course, I got to talk about my bad performance. This first guy didn't do bad. I just didn't start him. Antonio Gibson had 20 fantasy points. Had 20 fantasy points in replacement duty for Brian Robinson, who is obviously making a speedy recovery. And I might just leave him on the bench. I don't know. I'm really conflicted right now, especially with Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb playing so well. I know Brian Robinson will be back anytime soon. But Antonio Gibson had a solid game. He had 14 rushes, 58 yards, 4.1 average, seven receptions for 70 yards. So he did it in the passing game and the run game as well. And then uh, between the two backs that I probably could have um, replaced for Antonio Gibson, Nick Chubb, he was the lesser of the two. Between him and Jonathan Taylor, didn't quite get 20 points, fantasy points like Gibson did. This guy I have Chris Godwin, who had who was starting to have a good game, and his injuries kind of bit him again. But hey, we did get to see some vintage Julio Jones, so that was a plus. I think he had like three catches for like 60 something yards. So got to see Julio play well in that Bucks offense. He's with now could have replaced Chris Godwin in that flex position with a guy like Antonio Gibson, like I mentioned before. And then Tyler Boyd, a guy I had on my bench who had 13.3 fantasy points, four receptions for 33 yards and a touchdown, 8.3 average. Slight game for Tyler Boyd, who uh, played with a quarterback who didn't play well. Joe Burrow had two touchdowns and had four interceptions. So for Tyler Boyd to produce the way he did, who while playing alongside Jamar Chase, guy I mentioned here in a second, who had 10 receptions on his own. So for Tyler Boyd to have four receptions for 33 yards and a touchdown was great for him. For a fantasy owner, I think it was pretty solid. Matt Prater, not a disappointing fantasy performer. Didn't do anything wrong. Just didn't do much. Only had one extra point make. Didn't try for any. They didn't try for any field goals, so I can't really be mad at him. Honestly, the reason I'm not really great with picking kickers. I don't really know who's good and when they can be good and all that stuff for our fantasy goals. Um, he doesn't have a bye week to week 13, so that's pretty much why he made the cut for a kicker. I don't have to worry about kicking for 13 weeks. Cross my fingers. But yeah, as long as you stay healthy, doesn't get hurt, we have a kicker for the rest of the season, most of the season at least. Um, and the King of Kings league, a guy, Polo Mike, invited me to this league at the last minute. I decided to join the Atlanta Glizzy Control. I beat them 67.6 to 107.12. Of course, my Titletown Black Warriors, my top performers, Kyler Murray, despite being outplayed by the bench quarterback, Jalen Hurts, was 22 of 34, 193 yards, two touchdowns, had 20.62 fantasy points. Jalen Hurts, the guy I just mentioned before, had 24.7 fantasy points. It was 18 for 32, 243 yards, 17 rushes, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Complete game, running, passing for Jalen Hurts and new look Philadelphia offense. Devontae Adams had 20.1 fantasy points in his first game as a Las Vegas Raider alongside his college teammate Derek Carr. 10 receptions, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, the guy who's playing with his college quarterback, had 18.9 fantasy points with 10 receptions, 129 yards, and a touchdown. Um, my worst players of the weekend was T.J. Hawkinson, who had only had 3.8 fantasy points, which equated to four receptions, 38 yards. Zach Ertz was my backup tight end in this league. Had 9.4 points, despite only getting two receptions, 14 yards, and a touchdown. I had New Orleans defense who allowed 26 points to Atlanta Falcons. Only two fumble recoveries, a field goal block. Uh, I don't have a backup defense in this league, but I could have picked up the Steelers defense who had 22 fantasy points against the Bengals. The Browns who had 8.0 points this weekend. Denver Broncos 7.0 points against the Seattle Seahawks. Um, all right, let's get into some actual NFL games and predict these. Um, yeah, man. If you have some fantasy advice for me, want to talk about some fantasy, please comment on what I need to do to get better at fantasy. If I want to see my team, I will upload some screenshots of my various teams and how I can improve. But yeah, man, I'm just hoping to win, at this point, really just hoping to win the league that I actually own. So that's all I really care about. I do have a money league. Um, the Backcracker League is a money league, so hopefully I win that one as well. Don't want to lose no money. But yeah, man, first game of the week two for the NFL season. Uh, these are the top games in my opinion. I'm only doing 10, just to keep the show short and going. But my first prediction, I have the Eagles over the Vikings last week. Uh, the Minnesota Vikings beat the Packers 7-23. Kirk Cousins was 23 of 32 passes, 277 yards, two touchdowns. Dalvin Cook was 20 rushes for 90 yards, 4.5 average. Justin Jefferson had a masterful game, man. Just I think the first half he had like 140, 50 yards. Going into the second half, went completely ballistic, man. Get the right stat for that. But yeah, man, I have the Eagles. I just like how this new look Eagle team looks, man. Uh, their offense is just going to be great, man. You got two future Pro Bowl receivers. Well, Adrian Burns already is a Pro Bowler, but of course Devontae Smith, despite having a down game, is going to be one of the best receivers in the league eventually. Miles Sanders reminded us that he still got it with 13 yards, 96. 13 rushes for 96 yards, a touchdown. AJ Brown, like I mentioned before, is already finding a rapport with Jalen Hurts. Had 10 catches for 155 yards. Jalen Hurts, we've talked about his stats earlier, had a well balanced game running and throwing. Uh, Next game on the schedule, we have the Bengals versus the Cowboys. Joe Burrow didn't have a great game last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They ended up losing 23-20. Joe Burrow was 33 for 53, 380, 338 yards, two touchdowns, and but he had four interceptions. Man, those four ints really hurt. I think you can cut that down to one or two. Uh, Pittsburgh loses the game. Let's be honest. That's two or three more opportunities to have a touchdown to Jamar Chase and the rest of the receiving core. Maybe Joe Mixon, instead of receiving, passing the ball, you could run the ball with him, get him a rushing touchdown to win the game. But yeah, man, Joe Burrow can nitpick. Definitely, like I said, could nitpick and could say, you know, it wasn't like I mentioned before. It wasn't his best game statistically with those four interceptions. He did have six rushes for 47 yards, which is a plus. But it could be another offensive line issue as well. He had to scramble around for a few times. Joe Mixon, guy we just mentioned, had a solid game on the ground, 82 yards, almost 100 yards on the ground. Last week, the Cowboys lost their starting quarterback, Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush replaced him with 7 for 13, 64 yards. Ezekiel Elliott averaged 5 yards last week. Had 10 rushes, 50 yards. CeeDee Lamb, their top receivers, didn't play well. Had two receptions on 29 yards. If he's their true number one receiver, he needs to play better. He needs to step up, and it's not gonna uh, isn't gonna be as well if they play a backup playing with a backup quarterback. So, of course, Jimmy G's still out there, but I think 49ers going to use him for insurance. I think whoever officially loses the Steelers' job could be a possibility for them. Mr. Trubisky and I think Kenny Pickett are probably going to be the one and two for the Steelers, and Mason Rudolph may be a possibility for the Cowboys, a former Big 12 star at Oklahoma State. So he's kind of close by, I guess you could say, um, college wise. Let's see another quarterback. Could be better quarterback on the market. Um, Garner Minshew, guy the Eagles brought in last year to either compete or just back up Jalen. Jalen has took that job by the horns. So a guy like uh, Garner Minshew could be very cheap. Um, could be an easy trade. A Dalton, a guy who knows the system, currently backing up Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston seemingly has taken the reins of that job as well. They don't really need him. Um, Comment who y'all like to see be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys in Dak's absence. Should they go for a big name like Jimmy G, or should they should go back to the past with Eddie Dalton, or should they reach out to a young quarterback like Mason Rudolph or Kellen Munn, who's now a Brown? Um, Guys like that. Let's see. Yeah, man. What about name y'all can think of? Let me know in the comment section. Moving on, we have the Titans traveling to Buffalo. I have the Bills winning this game. Um, I didn't mention. Not really sure if I did. I have the Bengals winning the game against the Cowboys. Last week, the Titans lost to the Giants by 1 point. Terrible game for the Titans. Should have been very, very winnable. Ryan Tannehill was 20 for 33, 266 yards, two touchdowns. Derrick Henry only had 21 rushes for 82 yards. Backup running back Dontrell Hillard had two rushes for 8 yards, but did it did his damage in the passing game with three receptions, 61 yards, and two touchdowns last week for the Bills. of course, they handed the defending champs Rams a 21 loss point loss, 31-10. Josh Allen went crazy with 26 for 31 for 297 yards, three touchdowns, two interceptions, 10 rushes for 56 yards, and then touchdown, 5.6 a pop. Stephon Diggs, number one target, number one reception, did number one target things. Eight receptions for 120 yards and a touchdown. Gabe Davis, his, uh, I guess you could say his understudy, his number two, Ms. Robinson, his Batman. Gabe Davis, great complimentary receiver to Stephon Diggs. We was wondering who would step up in that number two role. We've always expected Gabe Davis. We knew last year they had Emmanuel Sanders. Um, was hoping maybe a Robert Foster, former Bama receiver, could be that guy. But for the last game against the Rams, man, four catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown. Gabe Davis showed us he's that guy. um, Cardinals playing the Raiders. I think the Raiders picked up their first win of the season. And then with that new look offense, Derek Carr last week was 22 for 37, 95 yards, a touchdown, three interceptions, and five sacks. Man, got to get that sack total down to about to one or two interceptions. Build that chemistry with other receivers. You have Dan Waller, you have your former receiver in Devontae Adams, you have Hunter Renfro. You got to play better, Derek Carr. I was one of the guys riding for you, saying that it wasn't your fault last season, how last season went. Uh, from what the circumstances you guys were faced with, coach being fired and all the scrutiny in the front office, and it got real ugly for the Raiders last season. They were still able um, to make the playoffs uh, and to rally and do some great things last season. I'm hoping that you bounce back and go back to that form. Like I mentioned before, Devontae Adams is there with you. He had 10 catches for 141 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs had 10 rushes for 57 yards, 5.7 average. Um, as for the Cardinals, last weekend they got demolished as well. 23-point victory for the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, yeah, man, Kyler Murray had a solid game, decent game. 22 completions to 34 attempts, 193 yards, two touchdowns. James Conner, 10 rushes for 26 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz, two reception for with a touchdown, 14 yards. Um, Not a great game for the Cardinals offensively or decent defensively. I do think they take another step in this Raiders game, but I do see them losing. Um, Next game we have the Dolphins versus the Ravens. I have the Ravens win this game. Absolutely, Lamar Jackson. Um, Despite other than his one interception and a couple incomplete throws, Lamar Jackson looked like his old MVP self. Looking like he's finding more comfort in the pocket. Delivered a beautiful touchdown pass late in the game to Devin Duvernay. Guy we're gonna talk about a little later um, here in a second. Um, but yeah, man, he's looking like he looking great for a running back, a quarterback. That's all I'm gonna say. If you know, you know. Rashad Bateman, aka Bateman, had two receptions uh, with a 59-yard touchdown catch. Devonay had four catches for 54 yards and a two touchdowns. This game on the schedule, we have the Bears versus the Packers. I have the Packers winning this matchup despite the Bears winning last week's upset against the 49ers. Justin Fields last week was 8 for 17, 121 yards, two touchdowns, and interception. Got some surprisingly good production from the backup running back Khalil Herbert, who was 9 for 24 and a touchdown. Uh, Dante Pettis, guy we haven't heard from in a long time, former Boise State wide receiver, man, playmaker, still in the league making plays against one of his former teams. had a 51-yard touchdown catch. Still got that speed, obviously. I do have the Packers winning the game. I think Aaron Rodgers bounced back from a 23-7 loss against the Vikings. Um, yeah, man, didn't play his best. Had an interception. Was 22 34 on 195 yards. We did see a little bit of Jordan Love, who was 4 for 5, 65 yards. That's another guy who the Cowboys could possibly call was a former late first round pick. We know the rookie wage scale isn't as high as it used to be, so the risk is very, very low. You have a guy who potentially could be a starter one day in his league. Why not try and see if he is a starter now? All else fails, next offseason you trade him during the preseason because you do have film on him. You know he's a former first round pick. So Cowboys made the call to the Packers. They're obviously not letting go of Aaron Rodgers anytime soon. They wasted a first round pick on Jordan Love. Obviously, why not get a fourth or fifth round pick for a guy like um, Jordan Love? But let's get into some more Packer stats from last week. We have Aaron Jones, who finished the game with 5 rushes, 49 yards, 9.8 yards, 9.8 average. The other AJ Dillon, the quad, what is it? Was it Quadimus Prime? As they call him, 10 rushes for 45 yards, 4.5 yard average. Also had 5 catches for 56 yards, 9.2 average. Next game on our schedule, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Saints. I have the Buccaneers win this game as well to start the season off 2-0 after beating Dallas 19-3 last week. Tom Brady, number one player in the league, Goat Brady, or whatever you want to call him, man. Uh, Giselle's husband after this season. You heard what she said. Come home, put down that football, start playing with them boys. But yeah, man, maybe he rise off into the sunset, like Peyton and John Elway was able to do this season. But as of right now, he played the Cowboys and played pretty darn good, man. Pretty solid. 18 for 27, 212 yards, a touchdown interception, slight gain for the goal. Um, Leonard Fournette, 21 rushes, 127 yards rushing, 14.2 yards average. Mike Evans had 5 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown, like I mentioned earlier. Julio Jones, man. Once Chris Godwin went down, it was kind of up to him to kind of pick up the slack at receiver. Um, to pick up that slack at receiver as the number two next to Mike Evans, and he was pretty solid. Three receptions for 69 yards, 23-yard average. Um, for the Saints, they played the Falcons. Like I mentioned before, they did allow 26 points to the Falcons and was able to beat them 27-26, despite allowing them to put up 26 points. Jameis Winston had uh, 23 for 34 out of 34 passes completed, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tight end Taysom Hill ran the ball 4 times for 81 yards and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry had 7 catches for 141 yards. Great game for the OG, the vet, at receiver for the Saints, man. Slam Boy got back to it, man. 5 receptions for 57 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11.4 yards average. Next game on the schedule, we have the Chargers versus the Chiefs, a AFC West matchup. Could have some playoff and home field advantage and division implications on this game right here. I have the Chiefs winning this one. I think the Chargers, once they get into the groove of things and get back healthy later in the season, they possibly could still have won in LA this time. Next time, Justin Herbert last week against the Raiders was 26 for 34, 76.5 completion percentage, 279 yards Passing, 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen had a slight day, receptions, 66 yards. Um, Backup receiver DeAndre Carter had 3 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown, 21.3 average for the rookie. Um, the Kansas City Chiefs last week, on the other hand, they played the Cardinals and won pretty handily, 44-21. Uh, Pat Mahomes was 30 for 39, 360 yards, 77% completion rate, 5 touchdowns. We got a um, a guy who here in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who we all thought was going to be a bust. I had a solid game. It's looking like that first round pick potential. If he can get some more carries and get more involved in the offense, I think he can really do some things. Had 7 rushes for only 42 yards. I think that's like a 6 yard carry per carry average. 3 receptions, 32 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pretty solid for the young running back. Uh, Travis Kelsey. Um, Travis Kelsey, Pat Mahomes, #1 receiver, especially now that Tyreek Hill is gone. Was Mr. Consistent as always, 8 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. I do have the Chiefs winning this game. One of my favorite teams in the whole league. Um, um, I just like I mentioned before, I don't think this is the Chargers' turn. They do have some injuries to deal with. I think Keenan Allen is out for them, so we'll see how the rest of it plays out for them. They with the acquisition they had on defense, um, there was definitely one of the Super Bowl contenders on paper. Um, week 2 might not go that way with the way the Chiefs are playing and them being injured. So not this week for the Chargers, but maybe next time. The Colts versus the Jaguars, our next game up. Last week the Colts tied with the Houston Texans 20-20. I hate ties. I hate ties. Sorry. I need a definitive winner. The playoff rules need to be changed. Let's keep playing until someone officially loses. Until someone officially wins. Matt Ryan threw the ball a whole lot, 50 times to be exact. Um, Completed 32 total passes, 35, 352 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Um, Jonathan Taylor, one of my favorite players in the league, possibly the best running back in the league. If Derrick Henry doesn't come back and say anything, uh, have anything to say about that, he had 31 rushes for 161 yards, 1 touchdown, a 5.2 average. Michael Pittman, their #1 receiver, had 9 receptions for 121 yards. Looked very, very good. The Jaguars lost again uh, to the Commanders. Trevor Lawrence had 24, 30, 42, 275 yards, a touchdown and interception, man. He has to get the interception thing under control, man. If the Jaguars really, truly want to believe in him as that franchise quarterback. I know he has potential. We've seen things he did in college, but Trevor Lawrence has to play better. With all that being said, I have the Colts winning this game. Should be a pretty close game like last week. His game for either one of them, maybe a 27-21 victory for the Colts. Neither team um, are they great, and this is a probably a mid-tier team at the most for the Colts. Probably win this division by default. Um, this division is the only division, the AFC South we're talking about now, is the only division without a win, and they had 2 teams to play each other. Let that sink in on y'all. Um, Next, that James Robinson, man, looked like he returned to last year and the year before last year form. Had 11 rushes for 66 yards, 6.0 average. Travis Etienne, guy who was injured all last season, had four rushes for 47 yards, 11.8 average. Christian Kirk, a guy who a lot of people thought they overpaid for this off season, had 6 receptions for 117 yards. We know he can make big plays. We know how fast he was. we were just trying to figure out is can he bring it all together? Can he really be that true number one receiver for Trevor Lawrence in that Jaguar offense? Next game, yeah, I did say Colts was gonna win. Next game, last and final game. The schedule for tonight we have the Patriots versus the Steelers. Not a big huge game, far as any playoff implications go, because I don't believe the Patriots are going to do anything this season. Didn't have a great draft. Didn't have a great off season. Didn't add anything to Mac Jones. He still kind of looked the same. Was 21 for 30, 213 yard touchdown and a pretty average game against a not not really, I wouldn't say dominant team in Miami, who must improve, but a 20-7 loss to an okay team is going to define the season. But I do believe that Mac Jones and that Patriots offense is going to take a step back. They nearly made the playoff last season. Actually, they did make the playoffs. I think they're going to make that team this year. I think they're going to finish closer to the top 10, 15 this year. Um, As for the rest of the team, Damian Harris had 9 rushes, 48 yards. Seems to have taken, like we talked about last year, um, the reins at the number one running back, the low getter, despite being told or shown that they're going to need run back by committee. Of course, they have Stevenson and some other backs in that backfield, but I think Harris is really the number one option for them. Um, Kendrick Bourne had a 41-yard reception last week. As for the Steelers, um, Mitch Trubisky played at quarterback last week. Had a pretty solid game against the Bengals. They were able to score uh, 26 points, 23 points. Sorry. Um, and yeah, man. I For my predictions for the game, I have the Steelers beating the Patriots. Should be a pretty close game. Defensive struggle. Both defenses are great. Um, I think that the weapons that the Steelers have at receiver and running back, obviously with Najee Harris, will be too much for that Patriots defense to really make a stop and slow them down. I think Mac Jones and that New England offense could be neutralized by the Steelers defense. And with that being said, the Steelers is my final prediction winner for the top games of the NFL. If I missed some games, please let me know in the comment section on games that y'all think should have made this list and should be the bigger game than the one of the games I mentioned before. Give me your analysis and your prediction of that game, or give me your predictions of any game I mentioned before. Uh, for the winners this weekend, I have Steelers, Colts, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Bengals, Eagles, Bills, Raiders, um, and Ravens and Packers. For my winners this weekend, thank you guys for listening to a special edition of Sports Talk with KC. Um, I'll be back each and every Wednesday night with Sports Talk with KC. Pretty much, Titletown TV presents X and O Sports game day preview. I'll be predicting all of the weekend's biggest games in college football and basketball, college football and NFL football, as well as giving some fantasy news on my fantasy teams and and how I did through my week in my three fantasy leagues. Um, Please get this video and other videos we have on the Titletown page a like, a share, a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm your boy KaRon, KC Caddell. As always, I'll see you guys next Wednesday at 7, same time, same place. We are out.